like to ask you about press freedom and then about a significant White House personnel matter. About press freedom, our government appears to be closer to potentially extraditing Julian Assange. Press freedom groups say that the case threatens to criminalize our profession. So I'm wondering what the White House's thinking is regarding that matter and the potential threat to press freedom. And does the White House have a stance on the pending federal press shield legislation that passed the House and that Senator Schumer told me he hopes reaches President Biden's desk this year?
You're talking about the Press Act more specifically? Yes. Look, and I've said this many times. I said this last week, where journalism is not a crime. We've been very clear about that. And as it relates to this particular legislation, I haven't reviewed it, would have to talk to our Office of Leg Affairs on that particular legislation. But I do want to say, back in October of 2022, the Justice Department codified a policy to ban subpoenas of journalist records. The President strongly supports the right of free and independent press. That is something that the President talked about when he was at the Gridiron. The President talked about this at the last White House Correspondents' Dinner. He's been very consistent about this, and I'll just quote him for a second. "A free press is a pillar of any free society, and while we may not always agree with certain coverage or admire it, we do admire the courage of the free press. Journalism, again, is not a crime."
Before moving on, just to confirm, no stance yet on the Press Act that you're aware of, and the Assange matter, is there concern about that?
I don't have much more to share besides what I just laid out here, so I'll just leave it as what I just stated to you.
Been in prison 5 years.
I understand. I heard the question. I'm just not going to go beyond from what I just stated.
And on the personal matter, I'd like to ask you about my reporting on Anthony Bernal, who's one of the most powerful figures in this White House. The First Lady reportedly refers to him as her work husband. 3 former colleagues have made allegations of sexual harassment against him, building on prior reports of bullying. Some of these sources have worked with you. I think you'd find them credible, but Chief of Staff Zients issued a statement dismissing the allegations as unfounded attacks without even investigating them, which my sources say they're alarmed about because they say it could chill sexual harassment and bullying reports. How can the White House potentially or possibly justify not investigate these allegations when the President says he will
So a couple of things. I don't know who your sources are, so I can't, just with all due respect, I can't speak to that, right? I just don't. I mean, they're blind sources. I can't speak to that. What I can speak to is you saw a statement from our Chief of Staff, Jeffrey Zients, saying they are unfounded. You saw a very strong statement from Anthony himself. It was obviously in your reporting, and he said the same. And I cannot speak to personnel investigations here or anything like that. That is not something I will ever speak to. And I'm not saying there is one. I'm just saying that I cannot speak to that, and that's not something I can do. But hold on. I have known Anthony for some time now. I've known him for more than a decade. I've worked closely with him, and I consider him a friend, but also a colleague that I respect. And that's basically what you also heard from Jeffrey Zients. I just don't have anything else to share beyond your reporting.
I'm just going to press you on this, though, because the President said he will fire people for disrespecting colleagues, and there's no investigation.
I just said to you that they have said themselves, Jeffrey Zients and also Anthony Bernal, that they are unfounded. I can't speak to your sources. Those are your sources to speak to. I cannot.
But no special status come from the First Lady shielding him, as some sources believe?
I've answered the question. Anthony Bernal spoke for himself. You heard from our Chief of Staff, and gave your publication a statement, obviously, and you've heard from me. I don't have it. I don't have anything else to share. I don't have anything else to share on that. So we don't end in that way. Go ahead, Brian.